Hello and welcome to Center of Spookiness, the very spooky podcast about very spooky stuff, but mostly it's about spooky TV episodes. I'm Josh, and with me, as always, is Spooky Skinner. Hey, Skinner.
Hey, Josh. Everyone, take your medicines.
That's right. It's time to take your medicine. If you didn't realize from my modified intro, we have entered into the spooky season. I know that it's only early September, but god damn it, spooky season starts in September for me. That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm enforcing in this podcast world that we're in. And that's just how it is. Labor Day has come and gone, and it's time to get spooky. It comes earlier every year. We've talked about it before. We have Christmas creep. This is creepy creep. And it begins now. For the next 2 months, we're going to be doing nothing but spooky TV episodes of some of our favorites, and we are kicking things off just right with a return to Springwood and Freddy's Nightmares. We're talking about Freddy's Nightmares, Season 1, Episode 11, Do Dreams Bleed, from January 8th, 1989.
This is fantastic stuff because this is
This
the best
show is
TV
great.
show.
It's
the
great.
greatest show that's ever been on television.
We've talked about it before, but it's that we are spoiled for choice when we're looking for episodes to cover from Freddy's Nightmares. Like, we've already done 2. They were both really fun to talk about. I think the first one was maybe the only one so far that has actually had Freddy be a central figure in the nightmare parts. This one kind of fits in with the last one that we did where that woman got trapped in her computer, where Freddy's not really as a part of the episode. He doesn't really do anything. He just shows up for the little interstitials. Regardless of all of that, reading through the descriptions of these episodes, you could literally just put on any one of them and have a good time.
And here's the thing I would say about how the writing on this show, and a lot of the shows we cover from this time, especially the ones that aren't on the national TV networks, is that it's a combination of writers as gigs that they did not give a shit about, and not knowing how to write a fucking TV show. And so they have people who are just throwing anything out there, probably trying to get as many scripts as possible, as quick as possible, for as cheap as possible.
Well, because as we know, with the current strike ongoing, which we support the writers, we support the actors, they should get proper deals in place. I mean, when you're hearing this, maybe the strike is over. I doubt it. But yeah, they probably weren't. Whoever wrote this episode probably not compensated fairly.
Exactly. And why would they give a shit? Yeah. And so structurally, would you give a shit if your episode holds together? No. If you gave it any episode of this, or say Masters of the Universe, a 2-sentence description, would it sound crazy? Yes. Does that make it good because they don't make shows as stupid anymore? Yes, it absolutely does. Because every episode of this show, due to probably a combination of not caring and not having enough experience or enough time
or money
or all of the above, they don't make any sense. And it's perfect for that. It's one of those shows that it is hard to find. We had to find it it used to be on Tubi. It belongs on Tubi.
Absolutely.
But it does not. Currently is not there, possibly due to some sort of rights problem, because, as you know, Nightmare on Elm Street is a rights holder nightmare.
Yeah.
But it is currently on the internet database of archived items.
Yes.
In terrible quality.
Terrible quality, but, that's to be expected. You wouldn't want this in crystal clear quality,
You
honestly.
would not. I blew it up to the full screen, and that's not the way to watch it. But but this show, if available, should be a far larger presence in cultural minds of people who like the horror, like the campy, like the corny, like old TV shows.
Yes.
It is a very strong IP involved in it, and yet it basically might as well not exist.
Okay.
It might as well be a dream that we've all forgotten. But
Before-
this is a good one.
Yes, it is. Before we get into the episode proper, I just have discovered a couple of little things. We were talking about the writers. So the credited writers on this episode are Wes Craven, which I'm sure he had nothing to do with this. He's probably
Nothing
just
to
like
do with
producer, you know, kind of credited with the whole thing. It also lists two other guys, Michael DeLuca and Jeff Freilich. So I want to go through a couple of these things that these guys have done because I think that it's kind of interesting to see where they came from, like with like where they started and where they came from. So obviously they're listed as producers on this show, on Freddy's Nightmares, not listed as writers, only as producers. So I don't know if these are actually the people who wrote this, or if IMDb is just not crediting them properly or crediting the writers properly. Not really sure. Kind of strange, but these are who is listed on IMDb. So I'll go through Michael DeLuca first, because the other guy is way more interesting, and you'll know why in just a bit.
I want my legacy to be the guy who you explain first, because the other person is way more interesting.
Yeah. So this guy has quite a long list of producer credits on huge things, like big stuff. Like it seems he got his start in the like early on with like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3, Freddy's Dead, The Final Nightmare, this show. But he also executive produced The Mask. He executive produced Boogie Nights, Dark City, Blade, Austin Powers,
yeah, baby,
Magnolia, like Rush Hour 2, like all these fairly big, like well-known movies. He was the producer
Rush Hour 2, much larger than you might think looking back upon it.
Producer of The Love Guru.
Oh,
but then also produced The Social Network, Moneyball, Captain Phillips, like bigger movies, like actual films. The Sisters Brothers, which is great, kind of underseen thing that people should watch if they've never seen it. It's really good. But like has produced big movies with big stars. So like cool. That's awesome. Great. That guy has a good career. The other guy, Jeff Freilich, he's also a producer, been credited on a lot of stuff. Incredible Hulk TV series, the Falcon Crest, which was a big soap opera show. Freddy's Nightmares, of course. A show called Dark Justice, which I do want to find. I want to read you this episode the show description. He was the creator of this show, and I feel like it fits right in our wheelhouse. After his wife and daughter are murdered, Judge Nicholas Marshall loses faith in the judicial system. Selecting defendants from the cases appearing in his court, he presses them into a different kind of community service as members of a vigilante group nicknamed the Night Watchmen.
So the Suicide Squad.
Basically, yeah. So I feel like we've got to find that show and we've got to cover it because it sounds ridiculous. And it looks like it's one of those weird situations where the lead character is only in 42 of the 65 episodes.
That's when you know it's good. That's when you know they have a cast.
But the other thing that this guy, his kind of like that jumped out at me immediately, like down the line, he's had other things, like he's been a producer on some TV shows. He was a producer on a Beethoven's Christmas Adventure movie.
We all were.
Yeah. So that's all well and good. Great. Excellent. The big thing that jumped out at me, though, was that he was the producer on a TV movie that was supposed to be a pilot called Frogmen. And that movie, it was a pilot for a show that was going to be about these Navy SEALs taking on special assignments. And it was going to star O.J. Simpson. And it did not happen because of the criminal acts that he was accused of.
So that is the major consequence of the O.J. Simpson trial.
Yes, that Frogmen didn't happen. And there's a lot of interesting stuff about how there's a lot of funny comments about how OJ learned how to use a knife on the set of Frogmen. which
Oh,
was
no.
right before all of this stuff happened. Anyway, diversion, obviously, but I just found that very funny when I was looking up who these guys were to see what else they had done, and that jumped out at me immediately.
So speaking of creative teams, I really thought watching this episode that it takes place more in the school, like one of the other 2 episodes we
Yeah.
watched, and involves a town full of people who don't believe kids. Involves a town where everyone's kind of an asshole, right?
Sure.
Has a history of terrible things that people are coping with in their own way, mostly by being assholes. And it made me think this would be a really fun property. This idea of this, like, if you just really took away the anthology about it a little bit and made it a little tighter, so it was consistently the same kind of backdrop. If you gave it to the Erie, Indiana Joe Dante group,
Sure.
I think like giving them, I think it had less budget than Erie, Indiana, honestly. But like giving them like, hey, you can do a little bit more adult craziness with it.
Yeah.
I think that this show would sing.
I think that I definitely think that that would be a great idea. I think that kind of it seems like that's what they're gonna try to do with. There's a new Friday the 13th series happening. I think it's called Crystal Lake or something. It's coming sometime soon, next year probably, with all the strike stuff that's happening right now. But that is going to probably be like a very anthology driven type of show. And I wonder if that's successful, if they'll then sort of revisit the Freddy's Nightmares realm and kind of like do a weird, the creepy town kind of series that happens to be set in Springwood, and maybe like Freddy is this looming figure, you know, that kind of is like people know about, you know, Freddy Krueger, they know about these unconnected murders, and then you just have other weird shit happening, because it certainly seems like from the episodes that we've watched, Springwood has a real problem with people dying pretty regularly. It's like in Hannibal, in the show Hannibal, when it was like, wow, there's a lot of serial killers in the Baltimore area, huh? Like, that's the same thing that's happening in Springwood.
I know people make fun of that for the, you know, why would people keep sending their kids to this camp for Friday the 13th? And like, you know, wouldn't the nation notice that Springwood has all this murder? It's on a TV show where bad things are happening, and canonically it is within the Friday 13th. Like, Freddy is a legend in this town and was a murderer, and like he exists. Like in another episode, someone mentions it, someone's obsessed with him. He's not a TV star movie thing. Like, he's within the town's culture. When you linger on it for more than 1.5 hours, all of a sudden you are just stuck with like, what the fuck is wrong with this town? And that's where I think like the Erie, Indiana, like there's literally something wrong with the town thing would work really well. I picture a Friday the 13th Nightmare on Elm Street series that they will make will involve people doing cryptids stuff about him through YouTube influencers.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Or TikTok kids talking about Freddy Krueger
as a cryptid, as a Slender Man's.
Oh yeah, sure.
A copy pasta. Like that is what that's going to be. I promise you. If it's not, someone will do it eventually.
Yeah.
And it'll be terrible. It'll be uninteresting, and they'll have Logan Paul on the show.
Oh god. Yeah, and a quick cameo. He'll threaten to box Freddy Krueger.
He'll threaten to box Freddy Krueger, and then he'll walk by some dead Asian kid. They'll think it's funny.
Yeah, he'll show up and he'll live stream some victim or something. All right, so let's finally start talking about this episode. And
like, there's a lot to talk about.
The insane things that are in it. So we open with what is clearly a dream sequence. We see a street in the quiet neighborhood somewhere in Springwood, and this kid is running down the middle of the street in his football jersey. Don't see what the name of the team is. It's just bright green with an 11 on it.
This is an episode with a color scheme.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. There's so many interesting color schemes happening throughout this thing. So we see this football spiraling through the air, and he catches it in his hand. and like, you know, is cheering for himself, but it's kind of weird that it's happening in the middle of the street and not like a football stadium, but whatever.
I mean, this is an interesting one that appears to be a dream, but also it also happened.
Yeah, it's weird because we thought it was a dream at first, and it's like, no, it's partially a dream, but also partially a memory. So like, which part was just the dream and which part was the memory? Did someone throw that football so far that he had to run out of the stadium to catch it? Like he was playing a game against Uncle Rico from Napoleon Dynamite. What do you want to bet I could throw a football over the mountains?
And he won that bet, man.
So he catches the football and then turns towards what looks like his school, and there's a set of stairs that go down into like a little side alley. And he goes down those stairs, and as he gets down to the first landing, he sees someone chopping away at this body on the ground. And this guy's going to town with this axe. He is hacking away at this person to the point where like the axe is getting stuck in them, which is kind of wild.
Visceral sound
Yes.
for even cable television.
It's pretty gross. And I can't remember here if the chopper also says it's time to take your medicine at this point. I can't remember if he says it here or not. He does say it a lot.
He does say a lot, which I'm going to spoil right now. Comes to something, but not really.
It doesn't really make any sense why that's happening. So
there's two things these sequences will kind of hint towards that will go nowhere.
And neither are confirmed.
Neither the balls on this episode.
Yeah,
the balls on this episode.
It's pretty interesting. We get sort of a confirmation at the end, but also it could be read in multiple ways. So we'll unpack that when we get there. But like, he comes downstairs, he sees the chopper chopping away, doing what his namesake suggests, and then he slips on the stairs. And when he lands on his back, he turns, and there is a severed head on the stairs next to him. And he, wakes up, and it's a dream. And we're like, oh, okay, so that's weird. Clearly he's having a horrible nightmare. We cut to him in his Barbie Dreamhouse kitchen because this thing is sky blue with pink cabinets and pink trim.
And pink doors.
Pink
and
doors.
Not just the kitchen, the house.
The whole house seems to be that. We see his room later, and it also seems to have the same color scheme.
And we see his girlfriends later, and it's the same general idea, except for the colors are now Sprite colors, where it is lemon lime.
Yes, she has like a lemon lime apartment. I don't know what their thought process was with this. Like, if we're supposed to
show up good on camera in the dark,
I guess like this is a trick that you would do for black and white television. You would paint everything like weird, vibrant colors so that when it was converted to black and white, you like it showed up properly. Like the contrast was good. Like, it's so strange. And I don't know if you're supposed to like be. I don't know if the intention is to like make it feel off-putting from the beginning, or what, but it's such a weird choice that like it really does stand out and make the episode even more interesting. 'Cause you're like, why the fuck would they do that?
It's weird that they got Buster Keaton to direct this episode.
So he's in the kitchen, and he is talking to his mother on the phone, who is overseas, I guess. We see this sign next to the telephone that she's on that says USA Overseas Operation, which I don't know what that means. It sounds like she's in the military.
And she's basically he wants her back to see him play in the playoffs or some big game. And she says, I've watched you play before. What would be the difference if it's a playoff or not?
Yes. And at this point, we're still thinking, oh, he just had a bad nightmare. Like, we don't know what's going on. But like he seems very put off by his parents not being there for the big game. And then his girlfriend shows up.
Ronnie.
By the way, his name is Johnny. Her name is Ronnie. So
yeah, it's terrible.
Why would they do that? I have no idea.
They're the 1950s couple, the football player and the girl with no other friends.
Yes. Living in their pink and blue and yellow and green house.
There's something they're going for there, but much like a lot of the episode, they reach towards something and then get kind of bored and walk away the other direction.
Yeah. So we get some interesting information here from her where she she's there early because she says she likes to leave when her mom has a sleepover guest. She likes to leave before they wake up. And you're like, "Oh, interesting." Are we dropping some hints about something? Maybe her mom is like, she's like sleeping around with a lot of guys. Maybe one of the guys is like connected to the story in some way, or is like maybe the chopper. And no, that comes to nothing. Honestly, you never hear about that again.
No, I mean, she mentions a couple of times that like her mom wouldn't mind her spending the night somewhere else.
Yeah.
Or wink, wink, because blah, blah, blah. Her mom's, getting dicked down by randos. But like, I mean, what it comes to is that her mom, gives her a speech later about how all men are bad. They're all hiding something.
Yes.
And, I guess they're all choppers inside. And it's like I told you the time, she's kind of like, the opposite end of the antagonist to Sinbad, who thought all women be shopping. She thinks all men be chopping.
I'm glad we workshopped that joke because it's very good.
It's very good. It would be better if I had saved it. Was the wonderful thing about watching it live together and commenting on it is that all the best material is spontaneously said then.
Yes.
Within context.
Yeah.
But this is the first they heard it, so maybe like they knew where I was going with it.
No, it's beautiful.
They were like chanting along, like he's gonna say chopping. He's gonna say it, and they all cheered.
You're the Bart Simpson meme. You are. You mention it and everyone's like, say the line.
Say the line.
So we find out here, this next scene, we see him in the locker room with his coach. His coach starts to drop this old like vaudeville routine. He's like, so a guy walks into a bar and blah, blah. And then Johnny goes, yeah, I get it. Take my wife, please. I've heard them all, coach. And you're like, okay, well, this is a weird relationship. And then we learn that the part where he found the chopper's victim, that was real. He did find this dead, decapitated body and is kind of traumatized by it. And no one else seems to really give a shit.
The rest of them seem kind of annoyed that he is in this situation.
Yeah, they're like, why did you have to be the one to find the body? Now I got to deal with your shit?
Yeah, like imagine like your child, Josh. Imagine your child comes upon and falls onto a dead body and with a decapitated head next to their body.
Yeah.
And within the same school year, still during the football season, back to school, just says, I'm in therapy. I'm through therapy. It's fine. And then everyone seems kind of annoyed at him. And as parents, you went overseas. They do establish that his parents are the worst people. Like yes. it's not just like the town is full of assholes and like they think that's how parents should treat their kids. It's very 80s of parents going on vacation without their kids.
Yeah, it's also very 80s for them to just be like, yeah, we're going to go on vacation even after our child is traumatized beyond belief.
These are non-refundable tickets.
That's
but
right. We've been planning this for 6 months.
I mean, his life, like in the end, his life is ruined.
Yes.
But well, at this point in the show, his life should already be ruined.
Yes.
Also, there are multiple dead people in town from the chopper, and if you bring out the fact that there is a what Mr. Kruger calls a cut rate copycat type discount murderer, like no one seems like they're heavily into looking into it besides the teacher. The rest seem like kind of annoyed, like, yeah, we know there's another fucking killer named the Chopper.
Yeah, we're not
Shut
gonna
the fuck up about it.
Our football team has a chance at nationals this year. We're not gonna not play, but just because there's some victims of a murderer.
That
happens every year here.
Going to the nationals, talking like you're getting ready. The national news is finally learning about your school because you don't cover high school stuff until like the very very end. They're like, all right, let's look into your school, your town. What? that player had what happened? and he's playing.
Yeah, the
what?
star quarterback discovered a dead body from a serial killer known as the Chopper, and he still went out there and played a great game. Don't we love him, folks? Let's give him a hand.
Shit. Immediately the nation would call, hey, fire your coach, fire everybody, fire the school. Yeah, school's now closed.
Yeah, we should shut down all extracurriculars and make sure everyone is safe. That's always very funny to me because like you do see it in. It's funny because you see it in like other slasher movies. They're like, there's a curfew and everybody's got to stay inside and we're canceling all this stuff because it's very dangerous. We want to make sure people are safe until this madman is off the streets or whatever. And it's like here, it's just, you discovered a dead body, but you're going to be at the game, right? Like you're going to play right, aren't you?
Yeah, like you got to get over this, man. Like I'm worried about you. Not that you're a young man who went through an insane amount of trauma, and mind you, I'm the only one talking to you about it because I'm the actual slasher spoiler. Probably.
Well, maybe we don't know.
I mean, hey, the good. You could take Freddy's closing comments either way.
Yes,
but it sure does sound like he's saying that Johnny is.
I don't know.
Innocent.
I could disagree with you. Like it could be that the innocent person is the coach.
Well, I mean, he's dead, so he paid a bigger penalty. Also, the coach is just a fucking monster.
Yeah. This coach guy is great. So
he plays a lawyer in RoboCop 2, and he looks like someone who will play a lawyer in a RoboCop movie.
Jeff McCarthy, who's playing Coach Gacy, though they keep calling him by his first name. They keep calling him Harris.
I mean, he's clearly called Gacy because
because
so they can't. But that's a little script fun thing.
Yeah, I guess
not for the screen.
It's It's
like when you first went on the internet and you looked up like you like started following The Simpsons, or like you came across a web page or something that because back then you had to go to a web page about a specific thing. There wasn't you just didn't have like generic social media to follow things on.
Yeah,
and you realize like that super fans of a TV show knew the episode titles of all the TV shows, and you're like, where the fuck did they figure that out? Why do you know that all the episodes of Friends start with the one where? How do you know that? Is it in readers? Is it in the TV Guide episode? If it is, why would you like? Anyways, like that was like to me, it was like I first got on the internet, like they all knew off the top of their head the episode titles of all the episodes, and I'm like, it has never occurred to me. Like, unless I was somebody who was organizing the vote for the Emmys to think about the episode titles of the episodes.
So this guy, Jeff, what's his name? Jeff McCarthy. He's been in a lot of stuff. One of my favorite credits of his is Star Trek Voyager, where he just plays human doctor. But apparently, he is the voice of Michigan J. Frog.
From the Warner Brothers.
Yes. He's credited quite a bit as Michigan J. Frog in a bunch of different cartoons. Animaniacs, Sylvester and Tweety Mysteries, Another Froggy Evening. He's credited quite a bit as Michigan J. Frog.
As the parody of the frog on The Simpsons that says, coming up next on the WB, another crappy show that nobody will see, which is all I ever think about when anyone mentions the WB.
I can't tell. I don't think so, unfortunately. But yeah, he's also a voice in Red Dead Redemption, so he must have like switched over into doing like voice work. But I mean, he's still acting as well. But
I mean, he has a really good asshole face.
He does, but that's crazy to me that he is Michigan J. Frog. That's wild.
It is wild to me that he has a talk. Like, let's see, this guy's a really good singer. It surprises me that the frog has a talking voice.
Yeah, that's crazy. All right, cool.
Is he in Space Jam?
No, it doesn't look like it, unfortunately. But yeah, so the coach is very casual. He even makes a joke about like, as long as John doesn't murder anybody, like doesn't murder one of the faculty members, it'll be fine. And it's like, he's like, that's pretty messed up, man. You're like, yeah, it is. It is very messed up. There's
a small controversy about the fact that though Johnny is a straight A student, he now has one failed class.
Yeah, apparently. We do get a great. Is this where we get the cut to the news? Like when they're listening to the news and there's like the radio is just like, well, there's no more news.
There's a pause. It's like there's no new news about the chopper, and I was like, I just wanted it as a small town news in the 80s before the 24/7 network stretched, because like news wasn't stretched out and repeated as often as it is now.
No, yeah,
like
you're not seeing the same story repeated 12 hours in a row,
or inventing news to have news. Like the site, like CNN kind of started that, but like there, I cannot stress to you, if you were born like after the 24/7 news networks, like literally there were just days where there was no fucking news.
Yeah.
It's fine. Like the news cycle was something major happens every few months. So I just really wanted this news station, this small Ohio town, to go, yeah, there's no new news. And that's it. And that's it. And then like go back to Morrissey or some shit.
Yeah, so they're in his room, also pink, with blue trim, and they get into a fight because he's, obviously he has had a traumatic experience, and she's his girlfriend Ronnie is trying to like be supportive and is like, hey, you never let me in, and I really want to like be there to help you, but you're not really interested in talking about yourself, and you don't really want to like it seems like you don't want help, but you want to kind of internalize it. Good point, Ronnie.
Ronnie's right. Ronnie's also practicing the clarinet in his bed, which is suggestive.
With her high heels on.
With her high heels on and her miniskirt. But once again, suggestive but not. They do a lot of her practicing the clarinet that I thought was leading somewhere.
Yeah.
It isn't.
Well, they do end up having sex at some point. Like
they make love.
Yeah, that's true. She says that they made love.
They make love. She tells
that to the coach, which is fucking gross.
Why would you like? I don't care if he's the only other person on the planet who knows what's going on intentionally because of his parents.
Yeah.
No, you just like the second.
Don't tell this old man that is your teacher that you've been having sex with your boyfriend. Like it's very weird because the coach just gives off weird vibes.
The coach gives off so many weird vibes. One of them is, "I'm Mr. Fuck Your Mom." Like,
yeah.
It's just there's just so many like
we thought that Ronnie's mom was going to be banging the coach. Like we thought that was going to be the big reveal.
That had to be on some version of the script.
So they get into this fight, and then he's like, all right, fine, I should just take you home. And then they leave the room, and he closes his door, and on the back of his door, there's a newspaper article about the Chopper murders.
He keeps it up there. So
like,
he
why?
sees it, but only when he's leaving his room.
It's so weird that you would have that. This horrible thing that happened. I would never want to be reminded. I was in a bad car accident when I was younger, and thankfully I was okay, but it was still kind of a slightly traumatic experience to the point where when I was when I was in a car driving with someone and we were going in the area where the accident happened, because it happened where I lived, I kind of got a little nervous about that. Like it was just kind of this weird little tinge of nervousness. And that didn't last for very long, couple months maybe, but like it was still that weird thing where you're like, oh, I'm in the same area where this bad thing happened to me, and I'm getting this little flash of it. And yet this guy has discovered a headless corpse and slipped on the blood on the stairs, and is okay being reminded constantly of that by whenever he leaves his room.
Just as he's leaving, and it's supposed to be a hint that he's perhaps, the chopper, but like no major spoilers there, because of course there's only 3 characters in this episode. It has to be one of the 3, or 2 of the 3.
Yeah. So he wakes up at 2:15 in the morning. 2:15 is significant for some reason that we are not told, because
it is always 2:15. I thought because he's not. This is Nightmare on Elm Street. And it is dreams.
Yeah.
I thought at some point there was a possibility, because this has happened in one of the other 2 episodes we watched, especially first season episodes, that whatever is happening, it could be being made worse by an interference from Freddy Krueger.
Yeah.
Because every clue, every hint, every like what is really going on is through dreams, because it is Nightmare on Elm Street show. Between Johnny and Ronnie, which they take at face value as being important and real hints. They're just dreams.
Yeah, it's
like neither of these kids are presented as having psychic powers.
I mean, there's some sort of dream connection, but it's unclear how it happened, or like if it even matters that they're connected.
Their dreams are seamless with reality.
Yeah,
because the final scenes of this episode appear to be a dream, but aren't.
Yeah, so he wakes up at 2:15. I thought it would have been clever if it was like he woke up at 2:11 or something, because 11 is his jersey number, like something that's connected to him in some way, as opposed to just
the chopper,
as opposed to just 2:15. But like,
or 4:20.
I mean, I wonder if
or 4:20.
Yeah, he could wake up at 3:69, buddy. Like, I wonder if he found the body.
There's no 69th minute. 4:20.
He woke up at like, maybe he found the body at 2:15 in the morning, which it doesn't explain why he was catching a football out in the middle of the street at 2:15.
I'm just saying, man, it's 4:20 a.m. somewhere all the time, bro.
That's true.
Getting off work at 4:20 a.m. Go chop somebody.
So he has this dream where he comes downstairs. Also, we get a ton of shirtless shots of this guy, this actor
who went on to executive produce the Freakonomics movie.
Oh yes,
but he is, for an 80s TV show, very in shape, and he's got that American Psycho haircut. It's in silhouette. He looks like the Chopper.
Yeah, he executive produced. He's done a bunch of stuff. He also acted in Amityville 1992, It's About Time.
The Amityville movies are really good.
Yeah, they're great.
All of them, fantastic.
I guess he was also on an episode of 21 Jump Street around the same time, which definitely...
He should be in another episode of this show so we can figure out what the fuck happened.
Yeah, exactly. But he goes down into his kitchen and his parents are there and he's like, "Oh, you're back." And they're like, "Yeah, we had to come back because we found out that you made an F, you fucking piece of shit." And they go down into the basement and then he follows them and he hears them say, "It's time to take your medicine." So I think his mom says that this time. And then he looks forward and he sees the chopper chopping up some people. And then
as he's wont to do.
As his MO. And then he looks down and he sees his parents and they're dead on the ground and they've been chopped up. And so you're like, okay, this is weird. Maybe he's the Chopper. Like maybe he's envisioning, murdering people and he's having these flashes or whatever. So the next day he talks to the coach about his weird dreams and the coach is very suspicious. And we're like, okay, so the coach is the Chopper.
Yeah, the coach went from like being somewhat concerned and kind of too nonchalant with him for considering the trauma he's gone through. Yeah. And at the same time, a little bit actual, like, hey, I'm concerned about you, kid.
Because you're going to cost me the fucking game.
Yeah, basically. But like, relatively, he is tangential to being a regular human of some sort.
Sure.
In this scene, he starts being like, oh, we're supposed to think he's also the Chopper. Like, he's the other red herring.
Yeah.
Because he's like, did you see his face?
Yeah,
Yeah,
he's having he's asking all these questions like, could you have seen the Chopper? Did he look like me?
Like, exactly. And like, in theory, he's had months to ask him this question, but all of a sudden he goes into overdrive because the kid had a bad dream where he's mad at his parents who abandoned him. He abandoned their child.
And so like we're like, okay, so maybe the coach is the Chopper, who knows? And then he leaves and we get even more evidence that maybe the coach is the Chopper because he pulls out a notebook, like an evidence notebook with a bunch of newspaper clippings about the Chopper taped inside. And you're like, okay, well then why does he have that? Is he figuring out who the Chopper is?
It's either like trophies, like similar. I mean, like, this is at least better than taping in the back of your door.
Yeah,
But
true.
like it just looks like the physical manifestation of a Wikipedia article about a serial killer. It's really thick.
Yeah, he's
I mean,
keeping a killer notebook.
God damn it, like fucking 80s and 90s and whatever, like cutting out newspaper articles, like fucking, I don't know, take a picture of it or some shit. Just, I gotta cut it out and glue it on something else.
Well, that's how it would work now. You would just have a folder on your phone full of pictures of newspaper articles, but that's much harder to discover. Like it's like you're not gonna. It's gonna be harder to find.
Of his desk at his work.
That's true. It is pretty bad. Like if you're not the chopper, this looks very suspicious.
This looks at least where you would be put on administrative leave.
Yeah, they're like, hey, maybe don't bring your murder notebook to work, please.
I think the second he like is in one of one of the students' house at 2:15 a.m. after his student has made love.
Yeah.
He says like, hey, I was there because I figured out the crime. Until like, so there's a place there where he gets put on administrative leave.
Yeah, they're probably like, "Hey, buddy, you can't be here anymore. Like, we need to deal with this because this is too strange."
Maybe in Springwood, if they fired every teacher,
there would be no teachers. There would be no teachers. The students would run the would run the asylum, I think, at that point. Because yeah, so he Johnny and Ronnie get into a fight because he's not really open about telling her his feelings and his life and all of that stuff. And she rushes off. And later that night, he's like, he tries to call her, but he just can't bring himself to do it. And he doesn't know how to apologize properly. And then at 2:15, he has another nightmare, goes back into the weird purple basement, and hears Ronnie's voice. And then he sees the chopper who seems to be murdering her. And the chopper here like throws some shade at Johnny and he's like, "You never talk to her anyway. It doesn't matter." I mean, I'm giving him the Freddy voice, but it's like this weird kind of like vocoder-y sort of voice that is sort of strange. Like it sounds like it might be a woman's voice that's been like pitched down to sound like a man's.
It's a little weird. It's not exactly the Batman voice.
No, but it's kind of like it's kind of high and sing-songy. Like, "You never talk to her anyway." Like it's got this weird effect put on it that's very strange.
Every time he goes into the dream, and then later when Ronnie goes into the dream, they always go through a door with a particular poster on it.
Oh yeah, like Saint Clement's French, like Cabernet Sauvignon or something like that.
And you'd think that would be leading to something.
Yeah, it never does.
That and one other thing I'll mention when we get there are two things like, oh, they're leading us to believe to go in a door in the real world, a door with this.
Yes, that's going to lead us to the real chopper.
To find this one thing which will show the evidence.
Yeah.
But we'll get there.
Yeah. So when he sees the chopper in his dream, like the chopper seems to be chopping up Ronnie, but he starts running after Johnny, and Johnny runs into his room and closes the door, and he finds Ronnie there in his bed, and he's like, "Oh, you're still alive." And then the chopper starts trying to break through the door, and he turns back to Ronnie, and she's got an axe in her chest, and then the chopper breaks in. Yeah, she had an accident. That's right. And the chopper breaks through the door and he wakes up. And again, the chopper says something about it's time to take your medicine. So you're like, okay, well, this is clearly leading to something as well. And not really. Like, it's stupid.
In fact, so we kept saying to each other as we were watching it, this would make a lot more sense if they had given us a little bit more context early, where someone had told Johnny before we actually saw him, before he started having dreams, said this line, or we had saw him taking medicine, or saw him not taking
like
medicine.
If his mom had said something to him on the phone, or if Ronnie had said something, or if the coach had said something, like if any of them or all three of them had said it, then you could have it like kind of a misdirect of who is it.
Instead, it's a he's forecasting the future that he will after everything has already gone wrong, and after he already hasn't said he's already doesn't is confused and being shaky crazy with a in the insane asylum.
Yeah, with his
that
straight
then he
jacket
should
on.
With straight jacket on, then he should stop taking his medicine. Then because
Yeah.
that's now clouding his memory. But like that doesn't make any sense. As like he's foreshadowing to himself, and you could really go like, "Hey, this is all Freddy doing this."
Sure.
Except for it's not even hinted for 1 second that Freddy is involved in any of this.
No, we barely see Freddy in this. Like we get him very early on in the episode where he says what you alluded to about he doesn't like cut rate copycats.
So he could have had a problem with the chopper.
Yeah, he should have said cut rate choppy cats.
Yes. Or chop rate copy chats.
Chop rate copy rats.
They have an interstitial where it's just a static shot of him, and then a door, a little peeky door, a little advent calendar door opens up over his head, and then out comes the words "A Nightmare on Elm Street," the series.
Yeah,
it's the funniest fucking thing.
It's pretty great.
Why would they do that?
I don't know, man. It's lovely though. It's like that early sort of video editor effect that you're just like, I can put a little door on here. Cool. It is essentially it's the way that they made the cat's mouth open in A Talking Cat is that little door effect.
It's like somebody did that and was like, nailed it. Got it.
Yeah.
Perfect. Show it twice. Show it 4 times.
So Ronnie shows up at his place again in the morning, and he apologizes to her, and everything is good. And then he goes to see Coach again and tells him more about his dreams and says, now Ronnie's potentially in danger. Maybe she's the next victim. I don't know what's going on, whatever. And the coach is very casual. He's like, you're crazy. The chopper's probably miles away, which is exactly what the chopper would say.
That's exactly what... Man, if he also rode a chopper.
That's right. We should see... Now that's a good red herring, is if we see the coach pull up on a big motorcycle.
Well, we never see the chopper in action that's not a dream.
Yeah, that's
true.
true.
But the chopper appears to just be, if you go by what the coach is wearing on his 2 home invasions.
Yeah, he's wearing the chopper's outfit.
Well, the chopper's outfit is like 7 coats.
Yeah.
His shoulders go up to the top of his ears.
Yeah,
I don't get it what it's supposed to be.
He's wearing the Steve Bannon line where it's just multiple layers.
In case it's warm, you can just take off layers.
That's right.
If you're out on a hot night chopping.
Yeah, if you get sweaty chopping, you can remove a layer and you'll be okay. So he's like, yeah, he's not here. So that night, Ronnie is over at Johnny's and he convinces her to spend the night with him.
She's not really convinced. He invites her and she's like, it's about fucking time.
Yeah, she's like, finally.
Finally, like this, let's get the chopping mall open down here.
Yes. So at 2:15, of course, he wakes up and he heads down into the basement.
Through the poster door.
Through the door that we've always seen. And
do we see the freezer at this point?
Or
is that
that's
always
later?
her?
That's later.
Okay.
So at this point, Ronnie also wakes up and she goes looking for Johnny. And she also looks down into the basement, which is interesting because we'll find out later they don't have a basement. So
no, like this
is a dream, I guess.
I mean, it ends up not being a dream, but like once again, if this was Freddy Krueger,
but this part is a dream.
This part is a dream.
I guess.
They're both in the same dream together, but they'll wake up out of it in the same positions they would have been if they were awake.
Yeah.
In this dream, like it's very, it's one of the sloppy things about this episode, which also makes it great to talk about. Is like, once again, what we're hinting about is there's no basement in his house or her house.
Yeah.
And they keep going through the same door to a basement that's a specific thing. And we're going to see a piece of evidence and have someone say, hey, what's out of place here?
Yeah.
But
It doesn't matter.
it doesn't matter, and it'll get more frustrating when I mention what that thing is. But yeah, now they are both upstairs,
Yes.
and then breaks in.
Well, so you see the chopper pop up in the doorway, and he's like, "It's time to take your medicine." And then there is a struggle. Someone tackles the chopper.
The chopper's really got to work on his branding.
Yeah, and they get tackled, and then she turns the lights on. You can't really see what's happening. It's very dark, and she turns on the lights, and you find Johnny on the ground, and the coach on top of him, and he's like knocked him out. And you're like, okay, well, what's happening here? And then Johnny's parents get home exactly at that time. So they're coming home at like 3 a.m, I guess. And so we find out that the coach was concerned because of all the talk of the murders and the dreams that Johnny's been having. And then apparently Ronnie contacted him at some point because she was worried about Johnny. So he was just out at 3 a.m, and he decided to come over and check on things.
Did he almost come in earlier and they were in like mid-coitus and he like decided like, I'll come back later in case there's a different kind of chopping going on?
Yeah, I think that's probably what it was. He had to go do some chopping of his own in the bathroom, and then he came back.
Like, I'm so glad I was here to save you, and all this other stuff. It's terrible what you went through. It's very unfortunate that I know what your face looks like when you're making love, but I was watching the whole time.
Yeah, I was outside the window checking on everything, making sure
I
it's
was waiting
good.
until you guys were done because I figured, but you know, it's really hard to tell because you weren't making any noise. If you were with me, the teacher, you'd be making all kinds of noise.
So the parents are there, and basically like they don't want word getting out that Johnny is maybe the chopper because it will ruin their family name, I guess.
It would ruin their generic business. The father later will say that his son is a quote unquote bad machine.
Yeah, whatever that means.
In that he looks okay on the outside, but on the inside he's all jumbled up.
What does that
mean? So they're like his parents, who like mother at least put some lip service to like, no, we think you're great. We're just really busy. We love you. Don't worry. We'll be together for all these other things in the future. Are immediately like, well, fuck you. Don't go to the police. We'll make sure that he disappears forever, and only person who's going to contact him is going to be the coach.
Yeah, we'll never see our son again. We're fine with him going to. Yeah, we're fine with him going to a hospital.
This shithead. Yeah, like even the mom's like, just like, I don't know. I don't fucking care. He's a piece of shit. Apparently, I don't like him.
Well, if he's the chopper, we're never going to see him again. We believe whatever you say, coach.
Well, that is very 80s and 70s and 60s and 90s and 2000s and 2010s, where they immediately like, oh, an adult said this, so they're probably telling the truth.
Yeah. So we do see a shot of Johnny as we enter into sort of the second beat of the story. This one is one where they don't have like the breakaway like we have in some of the previous ones where it's just one character carrying over. This is a story that actually continues all the way through the episode. We see Johnny and he's in a straitjacket and he's like shaking around like he's insane now. So we're like, okay.
He wasn't when they grabbed him, but he's now become stereotypically insane.
Yes. So then we start up sort of the next beat of the story, and we see Ronnie. She apparently is in a dream. She's playing her clarinet, and then is suddenly being backed by a bunch of ghosts also playing musical instruments.
That's the first hint of that.
It's pretty interesting because they're all like bathed in purple, and it's very strange.
It's very funny, honestly.
Oh, it's great.
It's supposed to be spooky, but like it's not.
Yeah,
in the slightest. It's very funny.
It's great. It very much looks like the Haunted Mansion or something. Like
yes.
It's that kind of effect, but like very sort of cartoony and over the top. But
we should mention the soundtrack for a second.
Oh, sure.
So while there is this one sound effect from I think the movie 2 that you absolutely adore.
I do. I don't know what it is. It's like this weird sort of. I don't know proper musical terms, so I don't want to like.
It's just this discordant metal noise.
Yes, you've heard it in everything. They used it in Are You Afraid of the Dark all the time. They played it in that. Oh my God, that movie about that weird monster that was inside the cat that we covered back on Predictocast, the Uninvited, where it went on a boat and like was killing all those people. They used that in that movie as well. Like it's this weird little like metal glissando kind of. It's like I don't know how to describe it. If you know what I'm talking about, you know exactly the sound. But they use it all throughout this episode.
It is slathered in it. It makes you realize this is a spooky episode.
Yeah, this is very spooky.
Because it is also shot to video and it looks like shit, and it's a really bad set. Every now and then, when Ronnie and Johnny are having like a heart to heart, they'll play soap opera romance music.
Yeah, they're kind of doing the Twin Peaks thing before Twin Peaks,
and it's just like it's all of a sudden like it breaks everything. Like it's like what the and if it goes on for more than 20 seconds, you're like, what is going on? Like it's just really like soft shot, bright colored music going on. You're like, this is just a fucking soap opera. And then one time they played some stereotypical Chinese music.
Yeah, I don't know what that was about.
And then one time they played some stereotypical Indian music.
Yeah, it's a
like Snake Charming music.
Yeah, it's some weird shit going on with this soundtrack. I don't know what is happening with this. But yeah, so we see her go or we see Johnny pop up basically, and he's covered in blood and he's screaming at her that like she should have known. Like she should have known that he was the chopper. And she wakes up and she's freaked out and she gets comforted by her mom. And then we get a scene of the coach in the psych ward talking to Johnny and trying to convince him that he is the chopper and that he was about to kill Ronnie before Coach Harris showed up. And it's like, why is this football coach at the local high school allowed to talk to this kid?
And like,
I guess the parents just signed a release and they were like, who gives a shit? Let him in.
He's technically invisible to society now because the police didn't arrest him. They just made him go away. But like, I mean, the police know he's the chopper later because he escapes. But it's just this weird like movie thing of like, oh, we let this adult of vague authority over children be alone with this person in a vulnerable position over and over and over again.
Yeah.
Like there'd be somebody at the hospital in theory, because this is what, as somebody who had a family member go to what would be at the time be called the crazy hospital, for a very, very serious, but very, what would be now today standard thing you would go to a hospital for mental health. It was just considered like everyone in there is crazy and the doctors just want you to disappear. And if anyone knows you have a family member in there, I was like very much told like nobody, I wasn't in a small town, but I was in a smaller city. Nobody was to know that we had a family member.
Of course.
Who had even stepped foot in my mother was afraid to be seen in the parking lot. We had to like park close and rush in. No one was to ever know when this is going on. And like it was considered like that's the nut house. They, the doctors don't care about you. And like, even then the doctors did. They were trying to help. They monitored you and gave you good advice and were caring. But in the movies and TV shows, they certainly weren't. We assumed there was all Stephen King hospitals everywhere.
Yeah, it's something because like it seems like if you're reading this as, oh, the coach is clearly the chopper, he is there trying to convince Johnny that he did it so that he can like take the blame for it and do his own thing. Or you could read it that Johnny is the chopper and the coach is trying to get him to like see the truth so he can start to heal or whatever, bullshit. Like it's very interesting how they play it. And I think that it's like,
if he didn't look like a scumbag, it would help.
Yeah, that's true. Cause like the coach just seems like very sketchy. The way he's playing it, and maybe he was directed to do it that way. Who knows? But like,
I know, I figure he's playing it at this point that he is the killer.
Yeah.
Because he's playing it as if he's the killer.
Yeah.
Like he's like, no, you are.
Yeah.
You have to admit it out loud.
Yeah.
Say it.
Yeah. So
take your medicine and like.
It's weird. We do get a little bit of what we were kind of talking about earlier, where the town seems strange because Ronnie is going to school and she is walking through her neighborhood, and all the neighbors kind of give her weird looks. And I thought something was going on here because we get like a weird deja vu thing where they show the same shots again and again of like the people doing the things like watering their grass or like picking up their newspaper, but they all kind of give her weird looks like she's the chopper or like she did something. But at this point, nobody knows that she's connected to the potential chopper.
Because he's supposed to have disappeared.
Yeah, like they kept it quiet.
That's what we were told to keep it quiet, but the way she talks about it to the coach, who was her only person she can talk to, because she has no friends, she said, and she hates everybody in town, is that they're all looking at her with suspicion because they apparently all know about Johnny, except for nobody's supposed to know.
Or maybe they just don't like her. I don't know.
It's very weird, but she's getting more and more afraid, and you do, and she has more dreams about the chopper. She once again she goes through that door again. She's having all this stuff like where someone's saying, or she's saying like, what's wrong with this picture? And she's downstairs and there's a freezer. It's all beat up. It's an old beat up deep freeze in the basement that is not in her house nor in Johnny's.
Yeah.
And out of it pop the backup singers with players from her band. They're all playing and they're dead. So you're to think she needs to find this basement, because if she finds the basement, there's a freezer in it with 3 dead bodies of girls in it.
Maybe, yeah.
That's the hint of it.
But then it's like, because it would be interesting. Maybe this show was trying, and I'm doing a lot of work for the show right now because there's nothing that indicates this, but like, were they her competition? Were they in like, they were trying to get first chair on the band, the school band for the clarinet, and like, these are her competition, so she's the chopper? She murdered them all? Like,
I think there's a second of that, but once it's clear, like, and she's like cuts through the wall, or mom's wall, like, because she's furious that she keeps hearing the chopper's evil basement, through her own wall that isn't there in her dreams, and she's going crazy. And you think like, well, maybe she's the chopper. There's a small chance that anything's possible now, but like, you are really like, I think the less subtle thing and less whatever is like, they're going to have to go to the coach's house. They'll see this door with this poster on it in a basement. In the basement will be a beat up freezer, and in the freezer are dead girls. I mean, like, that is like, that is so much what it's saying, except there's 2 minutes left in the episode and that's never going to happen.
No. So, they back at the hospital, we can kind of jump forward a little bit. Johnny gets some medicine from the nurse, but he doesn't take it. He, instead of just throwing the pill away, he breaks it up and like rolls all the powder around in his fingers, and you're like, why are you doing that? Fun. Ronnie is talking to the coach about like having these dreams and things, and she's like, Johnny must be trying to tell me something through my dreams. And the coach doesn't really believe her, but he kind of indulges her. He goes to see Johnny again in the hospital room, where he lights a cigarette. And it clearly seems like he's the killer. He
smokes, except for everyone smokes back then.
Yeah, it seems like he's the killer here because he's like, have you been taking your medication? Are you sure you've been taking your medicine? And like, very much like trying to insist, like, you better take your medicine and be good, and like all of that. And around this time, Ronnie discovers, like we already revealed, that apparently Johnny's house doesn't have a basement, so it couldn't have been the basement that he was seeing. Again, doesn't fucking matter. Ronnie goes to the coach and's like, hey, look, last night there was another chopper murder. It can't be Johnny because he's in the hospital. And this is when Coach Harris is like, well, no, actually, Johnny escaped last night, so he's still the chopper. Sorry.
And she's like, no.
Well, this is when he drops like the hammer on her, though, because he's like, you need to take care of yourself because Johnny's going to come for you, and you need to stay with a friend or something. And she's like, Johnny was my only friend. And he's like, well, you need to find some new ones.
this is where it's funny to me is that she's like she refuses to believe that he's the Chopper, and she's already what will be the final scene? It's already happened in front of her once,
Mm-hmm.
and she is unshakable that Johnny is not the Chopper.
Yeah, but then she has...
But at the end she's like, I can't say you're not the Chopper.
Yeah, she has a dream, and in the dream, Johnny is there with her mom, and he's dressed like the Chopper. Well, he has the stocking on his face. That's what the Chopper wears, and he chops her mom, and then she wakes up and in her bedroom, and the real Chopper is there, and
chopping through her door as he is wont to do.
Yeah, chops through her door, and he says, "It's time to take your medicine," and then we kind of see another struggle where it's Harris this time, the coach, who's falling down as Johnny is tackling him. Johnny, by the way, is wearing his football outfit.
Yeah, so if you wanted to make me feel like he actually is the Chopper and he's actually crazy, he escaped from the mental ward and put on his football outfit.
Yeah, he put on his football uniform to break in and try to kill his girlfriend. Yeah, that makes sense. So, because we see the Chopper in his dream, and he's wearing like all black, a bunch of coats, and like the stocking over his face. So it's very silly. But he bursts in, he tackles Harris, and when we pull back, we see that Harris is dead, and he has an axe in his chest. And Johnny was like, "Harris was the Chopper. He came here to kill you, and I came here to stop him. And like, can't you see what's happening?" And he has blood all over his hands, and she's freaking out. And then suddenly
she has ducked behind the bed a little bit.
Yeah, so she doesn't see exactly what happens.
Yeah.
And the cops just suddenly are there, and they're
the cops who weren't there for the first one we're told were kept out of the entire loop of it. And unless the coach called them in advance, there's no cops aren't just waiting for violence in a house to happen.
No,
ever. Even
they're causing it.
They're causing it. They're out there protecting property.
They show up so fast, and they're like, "Hey, you Chopper!" And they grab him, and he's like, "No, tell them what you saw." And she's like, "I don't know what I saw." And you're just
they pull him away, and they leave the dead body with her up there, and nobody else comes in.
Yeah, now we've traumatized another teen.
And we're like, what about all the hints of the freezer and the door and the post?
Yeah.
No, that's it. That's the end of the episode. That's
the end of the episode happens, and we get a cut to Freddy, who shows up and says that in Springwood, the innocent are always proven guilty. And you're like, what? What does that mean? Are you saying that
justice has come for the innocent?
Yeah. Are you saying that means that Johnny was actually the Chopper, or was Harris the Chopper? Like, they never reveal, which I kind of think is sort of fun, but it's just done in such a clumsy way that
it's funny. I do in a way respect setting up some really clear paths to an ending, and then ending it 5 minutes with that final 5 minutes never happening.
Yeah, like they're setting you up for all these things of okay, here's a clue, this is going to come back in some way, and none of it matters. It's like they were writing a full-length movie, and they were like, no, sorry, this is only 45 minutes. This is an hour-long TV show with commercials. You gotta cut all this shit out. But what, the last 20 minutes of the story is gone. Nah, we don't need it. Cut it.
I mean, it makes it more interesting to talk about, because you just never see this where there's red herrings and stuff, and then there's here we have all these prophetic dreams, and we're going somewhere with it, and then literally the plot is out of control, and it happens before the movie the episode is ready for it to happen, and it doesn't get to show all its cards on the table, and then it says well, guess what, you're never gonna find out, and it says, and then it's whoa, that's a real ballsy move.
Yeah.
What was this basement? What was this freezer? Who were these girls? What was this? What exactly is the don't forget to take your medicine thing?
Yeah.
I mean, I think canonically they want you to think the coach was the killer.
It
And
seems
that it's
clear
funny
that
that
that's the
he got
case.
caught. He got caught anyways, no matter what, and still no one believes him and are laughing at him.
Yeah, I think that's what it is. I think it's that clearly the coach was the chopper because it seems unlikely that it could be anybody else. And it definitely can't be. It definitely can't be Johnny. It just doesn't make any sense for it to be Johnny. And I mean, although I guess it could be, who fucking knows? Honestly, it's very stupid. But I do love that they're just like, yeah, we're not going to give you the closure that you crave. We are going to just hold it. We're going to dangle it in front of you, and we're going to go, nope, don't think so, and then that's it.
It is such a moment of like, oh, this is happening right now, but you haven't gotten to it. Wait, what? That's it? And like, and then it kind of laughs at you.
Yeah,
Like literally,
Freddy comes out and he's like, ha
Freddy
ha
comes in
ha.
and, like, says like, yeah, you're fucking never gonna find out. Like he says it in a way of like, I guess like if you believe this one, like I could imagine they actually had an ending, and his speech was very specifically supposed to be like, hey, I'm laughing at this innocent person going to jail
Yeah.
or this innocent person dying. Like I could see you could film it and have it end, and that thing means more on his face what it actually means, but giving a vague ending that came out of fucking nowhere because you ran out of time or editing or money or whatever, or you just didn't feel like it, or you thought it was more interesting this way, makes exactly the same statement seem like he could mean it either way
Yeah.
about either character.
Freddy just
Though it's really hard to consider the coach an innocent person because he went to the house at 3 a.m.
Yeah.
when they were fucking.
Freddy just turns to the camera and he's like, what do you think happened?
Choose your own adventure, bitch.
But yeah, that is the very fun Do Dreams Bleed, which also doesn't really make sense as the title of this episode.
Why the fuck isn't the word chop in the fucking episode?
Yeah, I don't know. So I think we should rate it on our scale of spookiness and again, the scale doesn't matter, the grades don't matter. It's just kind of how much we enjoyed the episode. So I'll go first this time. I think I'm going to give this I'm going to give this like a 7. I think I had a good time with this episode. I always have a good time with Freddy's Nightmares. It's a fun show. It's very silly. And if you've never seen it, like I highly encourage checking it out. It's just a fun anthology horror show that is a little bit bad, a little bit silly, and it's great.
I'll give it a 7 as well. The chopping sound was very
very gross. Yeah.
Gross. Man, I just love the idea on some level of setting up this whole like who done it and then fucking literally going, we don't fucking care, and ending it like before you finish your fucking bite of pie. You know what I'm saying? Like it's like,
how dare
Jesus
you care?
Christ. Like you're like, do you care about what we set up? Well, we don't. Fuck you. And then like just like like walking off and like going away. Like I'll see you again. Never. Like it's like what I just can't imagine. Like it would if you know, as clever as that is, and like you know, it's kind of better than the tropes of like you know setting it up that you know one person is the killer and then it's clearly the other. Like you can do this really very rote way of doing this, but I swear to God, like if a TV show did this today, where like a well watched one by like you know not like a niche genre of movie thing,
Yeah,
but like a fairly mainstream one. And like spend like an entire fucking episode setting up all the like when you know they don't have a basement, but where this basement, it must be whoever has this basement and this freezer must be the real, and then fucking not pay it off at all.
Yeah.
It's like and just literally go like, you know what? You're not gonna fucking find out. You're never gonna fucking find out. Here's Freddy. He's gonna fucking piss on you. He's never gonna find out. And then like, and the episode ends, and they never touch it again, and just be like, I just see like fucking Twitter X, the former Twitter, because you can't fucking just no one's ever gonna call it X, so you always have to call it X, the former Twitter. even themselves, if they email you on an account you don't use anymore to try to get you come back, they'll call themselves X, the former Twitter. What a fucking stupid fucking company. Just go like, they would be like, but like, be like, that is, what do you mean you did that? Like, just be like, not be like arguing over who did it in reality, but just be arguing over like, how dare the company, how dare the writers, how dare the producers, how dare the director fuck with us that badly.
I want to
in the 11th episode.
Yeah, I want to end with this. So on IMDb, it lists in the we kind of already talked about it, but I guess I didn't think that it would be a goof, but this is in the goofs section of IMDb. Jeff McCarthy's character, Coach Harris, is mistakenly called Coach Gacy in the credits. So I guess that was a mistake because they never refer to him as Coach Gacy in the episode proper. They only call him Coach Harris. I
would bet that's a script thing once again of like.
But how did they put his name? Because they put his name in the credits of the episode with Jeff McCarthy as Coach Gacy. They say it on screen.
Maybe that's his. Maybe his nom de plume is Coach Harris, but he's actually the great grandson. Don't worry about the actual timing on these things.
Coach Harris Gacy, Coach Gacy Harris. I mean, like, but they never call him Coach Gacy in the episode, so it's very silly that would have been a mistake. If that is an actual mistake,
can you imagine back when this came out, the total population on Earth of humans who paid attention and read the credits to this episode, pre VHS copies, pre DVDs,
probably
pre IMDb,
pretty small.
That's why I don't mean to insult this, but I see people talking about things going off streaming and quote unquote disappearing forever. That was fucking everything until 15 years ago.
I mean, yeah, you're not wrong. Like, I think we're trying to go back to that point, though. Unfortunately,
no, we don't have to. But like, it's acted like, what are we going to do? It's like everything was fucking disposable before DVD sets. Even like a show went off the air, and then in 3 years, you would turn to your person next to you and go, "Did that show even exist?" And they would look at themselves and look at their phone and go, "On the wall," and go, "I have no way of verifying whether this show existed or was a fever dream between us." Especially if it lasted only a few episodes, like a limited run 6 episode thing wasn't a big deal. It might as well have never existed. And that's why shows like this were written like this, because you would watch it, it would run. If it didn't get syndication, and most shows didn't, it disappeared forever. They expected you to never remember it existed. The internet wasn't like they didn't see the internet coming. Nothing was written or created or consumed with, well, one day the internet. That's like saying one day wizards will fucking write tablets in our brains that will have all the information in the world on it. If you just drank the special root beer pill, like it would make no sense. So like, why were things disposable? Because that's how things had to be. And that's how you had, and like that. It's just like, oh, this is terrible. I'm like, man, fucking writers had to deal with this forever. There was no secondary revenue on this shit. They should be paid more. But this is the fight they're having, is because this is a system that like everything went away. And the few shows that did make it to last long in syndication, like Who's the Boss, Tony Danza is fucking rich. And they're probably everyone who's involved in the production side of it and financing and the studios are probably furious they had to pay fucking Tony Danza a chunk of it. Because he couldn't even remember a second name.
That's the real person who's come out on top. Tony Danza.
Where's Tony's Nightmares? That's what he'd have to call it that.
Yeah.
Because he couldn't remember. You're playing Freddy in this. He's like, no, I'm not.
I'm playing Tony. All right. Well, that is going to do it for this, the first in our spooky season episodes. I'm excited to see what we have in store. We don't have it all planned out yet, but you can bet that it's going to get very spooky around here as we get closer and closer to Halloween. We hope you'll stick with us. If you like the show, obviously feel free to rate it wherever you find it. Share it with your friends. We don't expect much from this.
Pass it out to trick-or-treaters.
Yeah, pass it out to trick-or-treaters. Burn it to a
friends.
CD, put it on a tape, drop it in
Put
their
it on
bags. They'll love it.
Put it on a zip drive.
Yeah, they'll hate it. They'll hate you for it. They'll egg your house later, but you'll get the show out there to
Which technically sales to us. It's about units in hand.
That's right. But until next time, I've been Josh.
I've been Spooky Skinner.
That's right, you have. And we want you to keep it spooky out there.
In September. Spooktember.
Spooktember. Now, have a good bloody dream. And be sure to take your medicine. You've been listening to Center of Weirdness. If you like this show, rate and review us wherever you find it, but especially on Apple Podcasts. You can listen to every episode at centerofweird.com, where you can also find all of the old Predictocast episodes. And if you want to get in touch with us to tell us about a show we should cover, hit us up on Twitter at Weird Center. As always, thanks for listening.
Josh, are you the chopper?
I'm not the chopper. Let me just put away my notebook full of scraps about all the murders.
Close your notepad on your phone. It's all about notes about being the chopper.